Claire Donovan had always been drawn to the mountains. Friends described her as fearless, the kind of woman who thrived on solitude and adventure. In June of 2016, she set her sights on a solo trek across one of Colorado's most challenging thru-hiking routes. A winding trail that stretched through remote valleys, jagged ridges, and forests so dense that sunlight rarely reached the ground. Claire kept a small journal, her penmanship neat and steady, detailing every step of her journey. She wrote of icy rivers, the smell of pine, and the way silence could feel heavy in the wilderness. For her, this was not just a hike, it was a personal pilgrimage. In the beginning, everything seemed normal. Each night, she texted her younger brother with her location, sending him quick updates before her phone's signal vanished into the mountains again. Sometimes she even attached short clips, her smiling face, the camera panning to breathtaking views of snow-capped peaks behind her. She seemed excited, strong, and determined to finish the trek. But after the 6th day, her messages abruptly stopped. Her brother assumed she had lost reception, but as hours turned into days, worry crept in. Claire never missed a check-in. When she failed to appear at her planned rest stop, alarm bells rang. Local rangers were notified, and within 24 hours, a full-scale search was underway. Helicopters circled above while search teams followed faint trails in the dirt, calling out her name into the vast silence of the Rockies. Even trained search dogs were deployed, their noses pressed to the ground, weaving through the underbrush. But each night, they returned with nothing, no footprints, no dropped gear, no signs of a struggle. It was as if she had simply walked into the forest and vanished into thin air. Then came the first clue. A small, weather-beaten tent found pitched near a cliffside. Inside were remnants of her belongings, a sleeping bag, an empty food wrapper, and her water filter. But the rest of her gear, including her backpack, camera, and phone, were gone. It was as if she had left camp in a hurry, intending to return but never did. Some speculated she may have slipped into the canyon nearby, but searchers rappelled down every inch of the cliff with no sign of her body. Others began to whisper darker theories. Despite weeks of relentless searching, Claire's trail went cold. Authorities eventually scaled back operations, though her family refused to give up. Flyers with her face appeared in small towns surrounding the Rockies, urging hikers to come forward if they had seen her. Yet no witnesses emerged, and no answers came. The wilderness had swallowed her whole, leaving behind only questions, and a family tormented by the silence of not knowing what had happened. As days turned into weeks, the optimism surrounding Claire's rescue began to fade. The search and rescue teams who had once calmed the forests with urgency now moved with heavy step, the weight of unanswered questions pressing down on them. Every ridge had been scanned, every ravine explored, and still there was no sign of her. The once thunderous sound of helicopters in the skies grew quieter until, eventually, the skies over the Colorado Rockies returned to silence. For Claire's family, that silence was unbearable. It meant no new leads, no breakthroughs, only the gnawing uncertainty that left them trapped between hope and despair. Investigators pieced together what little they could from the scene. The tent had been found in good condition, with no signs of a struggle or damage. Her food supply was half-finished, suggesting she had been planning to stay longer. The absence of her backpack and phone added a strange layer to the mystery. Why would she leave without them? Some speculated she might have gone to collect water or scout the area, but the fact that she never returned hinted at something far more sinister. The forest, vast and indifferent, held its secrets tightly, giving up nothing. As weeks slipped by, theories began to swirl. The most common explanation was that she had slipped, fallen, and become trapped in a hidden crevice or beneath heavy brush where rescuers simply couldn't see her. Others whispered of predators, mountain lions, bears, or even wolves. Yet those familiar with the wilderness knew the signs of such encounters, and none were present. Then came the darker rumors that Claire hadn't simply been lost to nature, but to someone. Lone hikers had gone missing before, and the possibility of foul play cast a long, chilling shadow over the investigation. The authorities interviewed other hikers who had been in the region around the same time. A few remembered seeing a young woman matching Claire's description along the trail, cheerful and chatty, carrying her bright red pack. But no one recalled anything unusual, no confrontations, no one trailing behind her, nothing to suggest danger. It was as if she had walked off one trail and onto another path entirely, one invisible to the rest of the world. With no concrete leads, law enforcement had no choice but to file her disappearance as unsolved, though her case remained open. For her family, however, unsolved was not an answer. Claire's brother described lying awake at night, staring at his phone, hoping she would somehow send one last message through. Her parents clung to the possibility that she had been injured, that maybe she was alive somewhere out there, waiting to be found. Yet each day that passed without her only deepened the cold silence. And it was this silence, this heavy, suffocating absence, that would haunt them most of all. 5 long years passed with no word of Claire Donovan. Her case had grown cold, drifting into the archives of unsolved disappearances in the Colorado Rockies. But in the summer of 2021, a group of weekend hikers veered off the main trail to explore a narrow gorge carved between 2 towering rock faces. The area was rugged and rarely visited, a place where thick brush and shifting boulders made the path treacherous. That was where one of the hikers noticed something odd. A lone, weather-beaten hiking boot wedged between 2 large stones. It looked out of place, as though it had been trapped there for years. At first, the hikers assumed it was just discarded gear, the kind often found in remote wilderness. But when one of them tugged at the boot, they realized it still had weight inside. Uneasy laughter filled the group until one of them slipped off a glove and reached inside. Instead of bones or scraps of fabric, their fingers brushed against something small, flat, and hard beneath the worn insole. Pulling it free, they revealed a dust-caked SD card, its label long scratched away by time and moisture. Shock rippled through the group. It was no ordinary piece of lost gear. This was something deliberate, something hidden. When the boot and its strange contents were handed over to authorities, speculation erupted instantly. Why would an SD card be tucked away inside a shoe? Was it left by Claire as some kind of message, or had someone else placed it there? The card itself looked surprisingly intact, despite years in the wilderness. Rangers and investigators who had worked Claire's case were suddenly called back, their memories of the long, unsolved disappearance stirring once again. The discovery was not just unusual, it felt intentional, like a clue deliberately planted in the most unlikely of places. Theories multiplied. Some believed Claire had hidden the card herself, perhaps sensing she was in danger. Others thought the boot had been staged, left there by someone who wanted it to be found, though why they would wait years to reveal it remained unclear. Then there were the darker possibilities. That whoever had followed her had kept the card all this time, only to discard it once it no longer mattered. The mystery of its placement only deepened the case, raising more questions than answers. For the investigators, however, one fact stood above all. The SD card could contain the final moments of Claire's life. If it still held data after all those years, it might reveal where she had gone, what she had seen, or even who she had encountered. That fragile piece of plastic, hidden in a decayed boot, was suddenly the most important piece of evidence in a case long thought unsolvable. And what it revealed would not only shock investigators, it would terrify them. When technicians carefully inserted the SD card into a recovery system, the room went silent. Everyone present knew they might be staring at Claire Donovan's final hours. At first, the card revealed dozens of ordinary trail photos, sweeping mountain landscapes, close-ups of wildflowers, and the occasional selfie of Claire smiling into the sun. For a brief moment, investigators felt as though she were alive again, sharing her journey with the world. But as they scrolled deeper into the files, the tone shifted. The photos grew darker, less composed, as though they had been taken in haste. Then the videos appeared. The first clips seemed harmless enough. Claire sat by her campfire, speaking into the camera with her usual enthusiasm. She talked about the isolation of the mountains, the cold nights, and how beautiful it all felt. Yet her smile flickered now and then, and in one recording she paused mid-sentence, turning her head toward the trees as if she had heard something. After a long silence, she forced a laugh and brushed it off. Still, investigators noted how her eyes lingered on the shadows behind her, a detail that would take on new meaning as the footage progressed. The later videos revealed an unsettling shift in her demeanor. Her voice, once confident, became quieter, strained, as though she were trying not to draw attention. She whispered about feeling uneasy, about hearing twigs snapping at night, when no one should have been nearby. "I think someone's following me," she murmured in one recording, the camera trembling slightly in her hands. Her face looked pale, her lips dry, her once bright energy drained by an undercurrent of fear. She panned the camera across the tree line, capturing nothing but dense forest. But her quickened breathing told investigators that she believed someone was out there. One particular clip sent chills through the entire team. Claire had set her camera on a flat rock, the lens fixed toward the woods as she adjusted her gear in the frame. At first, it seemed unremarkable, until a subtle movement appeared in the distance. Investigators zoomed in, enhancing the footage. For less than 2 seconds, a tall, shadowed figure stood motionless between the trees, barely distinguishable from the trunks around it. It didn't move closer, didn't retreat, just lingered. Claire never noticed it, but the camera had. The discovery left the room frozen in silence. As the recordings went on, her tone became frantic. She spoke quickly, words tumbling out between heavy breaths. In the final playable clip, her eyes darted nervously toward the tent's opening as she whispered, "He's still out there." The camera shook violently, capturing only fragments of her face before the footage cut off. There was no goodbye, no explanation, just the suffocating dread of someone who knew time was running out. For investigators, it was clear whatever happened to Claire in those final moments, she had left behind a chilling record of her fear. When investigators replayed the clip showing the tall, motionless figure in the woods, they froze the frame and magnified it again and again. What they saw was far from conclusive, yet disturbingly undeniable. The figure was not a trick of light or a shadow cast by the trees. It had a human shape, broad shoulders, an elongated outline, and the eerie stillness of something, or someone deliberately watching. Unlike wildlife, which moves with instinctive caution, this presence appeared calculated, unmoving, as if it knew it was being observed and didn't care. It sent a cold ripple through the team. Claire had not been imagining things. The chilling part was not just the presence of the figure. It was the placement. Standing deep within the trees, half concealed by the trunks, the figure faced directly toward her camp. Investigators debated whether it was another hiker, a hunter, or something more sinister. But if it had been another outdoorsman, why hadn't they ever come forward? Why linger in the forest, silent and unseen, instead of greeting her or passing by? The silence surrounding the figure's identity only deepened the mystery, leaving investigators unsettled. The more they studied the footage, the more haunting details emerged. Enhancements revealed a faint glint near the figure's shoulder, something metallic catching the light for an instant before disappearing as the figure shifted. Some speculated it was gear, perhaps a rifle, or even a reflective surface on clothing. Others feared it was intentional concealment, someone prepared to stalk without being detected. Claire never acknowledged the figure in that clip, which suggested she hadn't noticed it at all. To investigators, this implied something terrifying, that she was being watched long before she realized it. When the footage was shown to Claire's family, her brother broke down. He recalled how she had always trusted the wilderness, believing nature was pure, and people were the real danger. Now, it seemed she had been right. The family demanded answers. Who else had been in those mountains at that exact time? Rangers scarred old permits, logging records of hikers, hunters, and campers, but nothing matched. No one on record should have been anywhere near her route when the video was taken. The shadow figure remained nameless, faceless, and very much alive in the footage. The most unsettling theory came from a retired ranger who reviewed the case. He claimed that the Rockies, vast and untamed, often drew more than just hikers. They drew people who wanted to disappear. Hermits, fugitives, and loners sometimes lived off the grid, unseen for years at a time. If she crossed paths with one of them, he said quietly, she wouldn't have stood a chance. His words chilled everyone in the room. The idea that someone could live undetected in the wilderness, watching hikers without ever being discovered, seemed almost too horrific to be true. And yet, the shadow figure in Claire's footage seemed to prove otherwise. As investigators scrolled to the last file on the SD card, their anticipation was almost unbearable. The file itself was badly corrupted, most of it reduced to static and unreadable fragments. For hours, digital forensics experts worked to salvage what they could. Out of nearly a full minute of video, only a handful of frames were recoverable. But what those frames revealed was enough to silence the room. It wasn't a landscape or a trail shot. It was inside Claire's tent, illuminated only by the dim, shaky glow of her headlamp. Her face was pale, her expression wide-eyed and frozen in terror. In the recovered images, Claire appeared to be speaking, though without audio. Her words were lost forever. Her lips parted as if she were whispering something urgent, her eyes darting toward the thin nylon wall of her tent. What drew every investigator's attention, however, was not her expression, it was what appeared just behind her. Faint but undeniable, the outline of a hand pressed against the outside fabric, the pale distortion of fingers splayed across the material. The hand was large, far larger than Claire's, and positioned as though someone was slowly dragging it downward. The discovery chilled everyone who saw it. If the image was real, and not a trick of light, it meant Claire had not been alone in her final moments. Someone had been just inches away from her, separated only by the thin barrier of her tent. The question was horrifying. Had she been hiding inside, hoping the person would go away, or had she been cornered, her last moments spent in fear with no escape? The corrupted nature of the video left investigators with more questions than answers. Yet that handprint lingered in their minds, a frozen moment of impending dread. Debates raged within the investigative team. Some believed the handprint proved Claire had been stalked and attacked, perhaps by the mysterious figure captured earlier. Others suggested a cruel possibility, that the footage had been tampered with, manipulated by whoever had hidden the SD card, leaving behind a carefully planted piece of psychological terror. But if that were true, how had the card ended up buried inside her boot, abandoned in the wilderness for years? The contradictions gnawed at them, pulling the mystery even further from resolution. For Claire's family, the final frame was almost unbearable to see. Her brother described the image as a scream without sound, the evidence that she had been terrified, that she had fought for her life until the very end. Yet even with this new clue, the reality remained cruelly out of reach. No body had ever been found, no suspect ever identified, and no confession ever surfaced. The hand in the tent was proof of something sinister. But it had come too late. Arriving years after the moment, it might have made a difference. Even with the SD card's chilling discoveries, the truth about Claire Donovan's disappearance remained elusive. The boot had been found miles away from her last known camp, in an area search teams had scoured years before. How had it ended up there? Had it been moved? Or had searchers somehow overlooked such a crucial clue? The questions piled higher with every detail uncovered, and none of them had answers. For investigators, the most frustrating part was that the card, instead of providing clarity, seemed to deepen the enigma surrounding her fate. The shadowy figure in the woods and the hand pressed against the tent were not enough to build a case. Without a body, without a suspect, and without additional evidence, the mystery remained nothing more than fragments of fear frozen in time. Law enforcement could not officially declare foul play, though every instinct told them something sinister had happened. The wilderness had given them glimpses of truth, but never the whole picture, like pieces of a puzzle scattered so far apart they could never be reassembled. Among the hiking community, Claire's story became more than just a cautionary tale. Campfire whispers grew into legends. Some hikers swore they had seen strange figures on the trails, silent watchers who disappeared when approached. Others claimed they heard footsteps trailing behind them for miles, only to turn and find no one there. Whether these accounts were real or born from the haunting power of Claire's story, they fed into the chilling folklore of the Rockies that someone, or something, lurked in the vast expanse, unseen but always present. For Claire's family, the years only sharpened the pain. The discovery of the SD card had given them hope at first. Hope that answers were finally within reach. But that hope dissolved into deeper torment when the files revealed nothing conclusive. They were left with images that played endlessly in their minds: her terrified face, the unseen watcher in the forest, the hand pressing against her tent. It was evidence, yes, but evidence of what? No one could say. The lack of closure was its own kind of punishment, a wound that refused to heal. To this day, the official record lists Claire Donovan's case as unresolved. Her disappearance stands as one of Colorado's most chilling mysteries, a story that has no ending, only fragments of horror scattered across the wilderness. Some believe the mountains know what happened to her, keeping the secret buried deep in their vast silence. Others think the truth is out there, waiting to be uncovered. But whether she was hunted by someone living in the shadows, or swallowed whole by the unforgiving wild, one thing remains certain: Claire's story continues to haunt those who dare to walk the same trails. And so, the trail of Claire Donovan ends not with answers, but with questions that cut deeper than the mountains themselves. A smiling hiker vanished without a trace, only to leave behind fragments of fear, an SD card hidden in her boot, a shadowy figure watching from the trees, and a hand pressed against her tent in the dead of night. Was she hunted by someone living unseen in the Rockies? Did she stumble upon a secret she was never meant to find? Or was it something darker, something that can't be explained by human hands? The wilderness keeps its secrets, and sometimes it whispers them back in ways that only raise more terror. To this day, Claire Donovan has never been found. The SD card gave us a glimpse into her final moments, but perhaps some doors should never be opened. The Colorado mountains remain silent. But for those who dare to walk their trails, remember this: sometimes it's not the wilderness you should fear. It's the eyes watching you from just beyond the trees.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.